Hey, how's it going, everybody? We just wrapped up a 7.5-hour broadcast, 7-hour broadcast, something like that on stream, where we watched all of day 2 of the RLCS. Today's video, we're going to recap it while it's still fresh on the mind. A lot of crazy results that led to a very interesting day 3 ahead of us. Hope you guys are enjoying the recaps. But with that said, let's get into it. What's up, everybody? Lawler here, inside source for all things Rocket League. Going to be breaking down the recap section of the Fall Split Major. Day 2 in Sweden, a bunch of different matches, and primarily getting through a bunch of different things. Number 1, the end of round 2 with all the lower matches, and then getting through all of round 3. There was a lot of matches today. Like I said, it was like a 7-hour broadcast, so a lot of things to get through. Going to talk in some general kind of phrasing and kind of encompass a lot of things in one. Shout outs again to the editor Wojtek, as always, for getting a bunch of highlights and cool stuff while I ramble about stuff. So with that said, let's start with the beginning of the day. It is December 9th when these went down, and we started with the low side of round 2. We had Endpoint versus Vitality, Complexity versus Era, Furia versus G2, and Ground Zero versus Tokyo Verde. Couple things to talk about. Number 1, Vitality looking kind of rough. This is unfortunate. I think a lot of this just has to do with a couple things. Number 1, if you guys didn't see the tweet, by Fairy Peak, he's actually dealing with some food poisoning issues, has not been able to really eat food and just be not sick. So that part kind of sucks. And it's definitely showing in his play. Very hesitant. You can definitely tell, like, the mind feels a little bit spacey on the field, but primarily you just go see him to go make a decision, and it doesn't look like he's all there. And it explains a lot in his gameplay, which is really unfortunate. And I don't want to make excuses for Vitality, but that stuff can definitely be make or break for a roster. I will say, though, that KDOP is doing everything in his power to will his team into a top 8 result. So pretty crazy stuff there. Either way, they do get beaten by the number 1 seed, who has actually had pretty good results against Vitality. So Endpoint does end up clearing this one out. It is 3-2 with an OT to start, then 2-0, then 5-2 in favor of Vitality, and then 3-1 for Endpoint. We then jump down to Complexity versus Era, and Complexity, fast, aggressive, basically showed them, like, what's up? We are the OG SAM team. We're now North America, and we've learned some things. Let us show you what. Starts off with really close series, 4-3 and then 4-2 for Era, but then they close them out with shutouts, 1-0, 2-0. So Complexity looking pretty strong and trying to live up to the NA name and give us some copium, because it's been pretty rough as an NA fan at this major. So we'll see how things keep going. Speaking of rough, we've got Furia versus G2, and this one, man, G2 goes up against Sandrock Gaming, gets swept, all 1-goal games, looks pretty dang solid. They go up against then Furia, and Furia just wheels their way through G2. This one looked like G2 was going to drop the first game and then come back and close it out, but 2-1, then 3-1, then 4-2, and then Furia says, hey, you guys are up 2-1 in the series, let's do our turn. And they win 4-1 and then 3-2 with an OT. This game could have went either way. It was another coin flip, and I think this is a lot of credit to Sam finally showcasing, like, hey, we are going to have some strong results. We are here to compete, and it looks great. The biggest thing it feels like is a lot of these teams that are supposed to be the favorites, the ones with the experience, are feeling the pressure more than some of these teams that are coming in with, hey, we don't have any expectations. We're just going to show up and play. And Furia seems to be that team that's just like, you know what? We're here to play. We're here to have a good time, but we're also going to be super competitive. And it's been looking good. So this one does come down to the wire. It comes down to an OT. Shoutouts to Furia for closing that one out. And then we go to Ground Zero and Tokyo Verde. Verde does score a goal in every single game, which is awesome. Glad to see them getting some trending. But Ground Zero looking like a really solid team. You could tell the contrast between day 1 and day 2. Ground Zero, I don't know what was talked about in their meetings or in their debriefing with their coach, but whatever they said, Ground Zero looks like a completely different team, and they look absolutely fantastic. Not the same team that lost to Envy. So Ground Zero looks really solid and is looking like a top 8 performance. We then go to round 3. We've got high, middle, and low. We've got teams that are 2-0 with a chance to qualify to go to the playoffs. We got teams that are 1-1, and then we got teams that are 0-2 that are facing elimination. Let's start on the low side and work our way up to who is qualified. On the low side, you got Vitality versus Era and G2 versus Tokyo Verde. Game starts off with G2, and they start freestyling, passing plays, doing whatever they want. Chicago's wearing a Santa hat, fist bumping everybody, trying to get vibes, making sure they're immaculate. Tokyo Verde then puts up a fight in game 2. It's actually 2-2, goes to OT. We're like, is this happening? Is Tokyo Verde going to get a win? Are things going to... And then they lose an OT, which really sucked. And then the following game, Tokyo Verde showing adjustments, showing the ability to go toe-to-toe against a struggling G2. And that's what we want to see, is we have to compare it to what it was like in seasons past, when OCE first came in with like Pale Horse. Even in Season 8, Cranberry Havoc, Canberra Havoc, got smacked. They lost to a freestyling Space Station, and then they lost to Pittsburgh Knights. Like, they did not look good. And that was just like the last World Championship 2 years ago. Tokyo Verde is coming in and still going toe-to-toe against some of these better regions. It's awesome to see. If you guys do not know, realize their star player is coaching his other two teammates. So they don't have a coach, but realize their star player is coaching Tenhao and Maru at the same time as trying to be their teammate. And they're still putting up results like this. I'm super proud of this team. It sucks they're the first team eliminated. But I'm so proud of what Tokyo Verde has done as a region. I hope they go back to their region even stronger, and they use that stuff to make the region better as a whole, and then they come back and compete well in the winter split. G2 stays alive. Their opponent, though, we'll see how that one goes. I'll tell you guys about tomorrow's matches in a bit here. The other lower round match is Vitality versus Era. Vitality comes out, wins, and they just decide to never want to close this one out. You could tell there's some things going on with Vitality. I mentioned the food poisoning stuff with Fairy Peak. Alpha had a really good start, a couple good fakes. He had one where he used his jump to get underneath and then played underneath and change direction with his shot. A lot of really good moments, but in the end, it was actually K-Dop. K-Dop willing his way to make sure they got victories, but Era put up a really good fight. We still have yet to see South America have two teams get wins. There's always been one team that gets wins, and then the other team goes 0-2, this case 0-3. Ground Zero has broken that curse. Both Renegades and Ground Zero have wins, so exciting stuff for them. But Vitality does end up holding on in the end. They end up closing it out 3-2 in the series. They stay alive in their matchup tomorrow. Whew, oh boy. All right. Mid-series. These are the teams that are 1-1. If you lose, you go down in elimination. If you win, you get a chance to qualify tomorrow. Either way, extra lives for both these rosters. Up first, we get a rematch. Ground Zero versus Renegades. International. No. We got another regional match. Who would have thought? Renegades and Ground Zero. Renegades struggled. Ground Zero controlled the majority of this game, but I say that it was still kept very close. 1-0, 2-0, and 2-1. Ground Zero with a 3-0 sweep. That is the best I think I've seen Ground Zero play in a long time. They controlled the field extremely well, only allowing Renegades one goal. And the only reason they got that goal is because they stopped playing and allowed them to dribble it in. Fever, I think, got the last goal in when it was 0-second time. So technically a perfect sweep from Ground Zero if they would have kept playing. But man, Ground Zero looks solid. Controlled the field extremely well. Really solid pressure. Good follow-up. Torzos continuing to lead the charge for his team, but good team effort there. Express doing some interesting things. A couple double commits and a couple passing off of possession that I wasn't a fan of, but overall, Ground Zero looked like a solid team. Up next, we saw Energy and Endpoint, and this was the Justin show versus the defensive Endpoint, where Seiko was doing a lot to keep the ball out of the net. Casio continues to show up with his accuracy, and Relating Wave coming up clutch when it matters most. This one went to 5. It started off with Endpoint winning an OT, and then Energy goes 4-2, 2-0, chance to close it out. They're 2-1 in the series, and then Endpoint shuts them out 1-0, and then Energy loses an OT in a not fun way. It's in the back right corner, it comes out. Relating Wave intercepts it, puts it in. They win the series. So pretty scary stuff here. I don't think Energy necessarily looked bad. I think the difficulty for them is obviously Squishy showed up really well in day 1. In day 2, they started to get that form back. I know it looks like, hey, you're 1-2, you're dropping down. They play Vitality in the lower round. One of those teams is going home. Either way, Energy finally started getting some help. Garrett started working in a bunch of demos. The team started to come together, and by the end of the series, both Energy and Endpoint started looking like back to their normal selves. I will say Energy still, I think, has some room to grow, and luckily they're still alive for them, but Endpoint ends up winning this one. It came down to the wire. There could be very different storylines going about NA Copium and stuff like that if this result happens, but it didn't, so it doesn't matter. We then go to another regional match between Complexity and Envy, who has been looking kind of sluggish lately. I think a lot of it does have to do with Atomic. There's concerns of rookies stepping up and having big performances, and the machine, as he's been deemed, has not really been doing that. A lot of awkward challenges. Don't know if it's a communication thing, but it's like There'll be times where the key's on the other side of the field and a player will be behind the ball and he'll still aerial to go for it, even though there's literally no reason to. Things seem to be a lot of position. I don't know if he's in his own head or what. They're still alive. They've got a tough match ahead of them, but yeah, Envy just didn't look like that. Like that team that we know they can be. I will say they were never shut out. They scored a goal in at least every game, so they were always competitive. But this series, 1-0 in favor of Envy with a 5-minute, 50-second OT, 3-2 complexity, 3-1 complexity, 2-1 Envy, and then another 5-minute and 17-second OT, 2-1 in favor of complexity. So it does go to 5, 2 OTs, super close. Doesn't make me all that confident for both complexity and Envy based upon the results, but ultimately, complexity's got to find a way to put some more shots away. They've got a lot of offense, but they got to find ways to put them away. There's been moments where they hit them with a crazy flip reset or whatever, but against some of these other teams, there's a lot of opportunities that they're missing out on, and teams are going to punish them the other way if they don't take advantage of the opportunities they're presenting themselves with. So a little bit of concern for both sides. Not feeling too confident about either Envy or Complexity, being honest, but Complexity does beat Envy and moves forward. We then get into the last game of the mid-series, which is Sandrock Gaming versus Furia. And game 1 starts off 5-1 in favor of Sandrock. Game 2 then starts off 5-1 in favor of Sandrock. They score a 6th. And then Furia scores like 3 or 4 goals in a matter of like 50-some seconds. And they bring it back within 2. And I'm like, is this actually going to happen? Are we going to see the greatest comeback ever? And it doesn't happen. Sandrock closes that out. So game 2, it is now 2-0 in favor of Sandrock. We go to game 3. Furia bounces back 3-0. But then SRG comes out. Very dominant performance, 2-0. And they close it out. So 3-1 in favor of Sandrock, in a position to be top 8, looking extremely solid based upon how things are going to go. And I'll talk about this at the end of the video when we talk about matchups. There's some interesting things that can play out based upon game differentials and stuff as well, but primarily Sandrock taking it to Furia. The last time they did scrims, Furia ended up winning, I think, 4-3 in the scrims, but this time Sandrock proving a point, and that's how it felt in this series. They're like, yes, you may have won the scrim, but this is when it matters. We are here to prove and make a statement, and they do. They smacked on Furia for a little bit. It was really intense, but Furia, I'm glad to see them put up a fight, a little bit of adversity on the big stage. It's not over until you lose all 3. And I'm glad to see they have some resistance in that. Either way, Sandrock moves ahead. Fury moves down. We then get into our last matches of the day. Dignitas Semper, FaZe BDS. I say those names first in both of those sides because they are the most dominant teams. Dignitas does something incredible. In the Swiss stage, they do not drop a single game. 9-0 across the board. And they make a good-looking Semper team look, I mean, still pretty good. Dignitas actually had a really solid performance. 5-4, 5-2, 2-1, 2 overtimes, 6+ minutes in total. Semper getting swept does not tell the story. Semper still looks a very solid team. They're definitely one of my favorites to qualify next. And I'll talk about that, and I'll probably give you guys some early predictions here in a bit. But Dignitas looks unbelievable. They're vibing. They're having a good time. They attack in many unique ways, but man, are they fast, and man, are they aggressive. They end up beating Semper 3-0. Very close series. Do not let the 3-0 fool you. The only team I think that pairs with them on that is FaZe, where this game was basically FaZe dusting players to the ball. Shoutouts to Illusion. Everybody's talking about First Killer in his offense, but it is Illusion who is hitting flip resets and crazy offense. He started the game with an air dribble and put it in far post, and they beat BDS. So NA has won, EU has won in the finals so far. But the rest of NA has been kind of oof. Not looking good. FaZe wins 2-1, 3-1. They then lose 3-2 with an OT, 145, and then they win 1-0. So BDS does put up a pretty good fight. Feeling pretty solid about them overall. Just going to see how things roll out. They do end up playing Endpoint in the next round, which I'll talk about here in just a sec. But FaZe and Dignitas looking like favorites. A lot of mechanics paying off. That's kind of been the difference maker, is for the teams that are able to have their mechanical players show up. Talking about Dignitas, talking about FaZe. You can even talk about Endpoint at times with Seiko. You can talk about any of these teams where the big mechanical player, the flashy, the one player who looks at them and just goes, yeah, this is the team. This is the team with the really flashy mechanical guy. As long as those players are being successful with their solo plays, that's been the difference maker. All these matches have been super close, super competitive, other than a couple here and there. But for the most part, the difference maker in these matches have been individuals stepping up. It's been very entertaining. This whole thing has been super close with a lot of coin flipping results, which is what you want out of Rocket League, especially after the nonsense that has been no land for 2 years. So Pretty crazy stuff. Let's move on to the final part and talk about the matches that are going to be happening the next day. We've got high seeds and low seeds. And as of right now, the way those matches are going to play out on the high side, these are teams that are 2-1 with the chance to qualify. You've got Ground Zero versus Sandrock Gaming. You've got OCE versus Meetup. One of those will be top 8. You got BDS versus Endpoint. Pretty exciting match. You got the number 1 seed versus the number 3 seed. Can BDS take back their title? And then you've got Semper versus Complexity, which I'm leaning towards Semper. I think Sandrock will probably win in 5, maybe 4. I think BDS will beat Endpoint based upon what we've been seeing. I think that'll actually probably go to 5. That's a coin flip for me. And I think Semper is going to smack Complexity, if I'm being honest. And then go to the low side of things. These are elimination matches. Teams that are 1 and 2. You have to win to stay alive. You've got Furia versus Renegades, Envy versus G2, and NRG versus Vitality. A repeat of the grand finals of Season 8 comes down to a 1-2 elimination match in Swiss. Pretty incredible stuff here. So some wild results you will not want to miss tomorrow. They will be doing all of those matches and then also the 2-2 matches, the elimination or qualification matches as well after that for the last 3 seeds. It's going to be wild. It'll be all live at twitch.tv/Lawler. I'll be doing a watch party again after 7 hours today. We'll do a recap immediately after. It's been a wild week so far with some more surprises still yet to come. So with that said, if you guys do enjoy the content and the recaps, give it a thumbs up, hit subscribe, turn on notifications. I've been talking nonstop for the past like 9 hours. So I am going to go drink some water and play some video games and relax a little bit. But we'll see you bright and early tomorrow on my stream at 10 a.m. Central. Hope to see you guys in chat. Catch you next time. Peace.